Stephanie Dobson is back with us again this week for another episode of Healthy, Thriving Families in Two Homes. And Stephanie, this week we're talking about interspousal agreements. Now, this is something, to be honest, that I had never actually thought of. So can you start exactly by explaining to us exactly what this is?
Sure. And, I want to distinguish this. We've talked a few episodes ago about a separation agreement and why people would want a separation agreement. And so this time I thought, let's broaden it to the term interspousal agreement because it's a little bit broader. So what is an interspousal agreement? Realistically, it's just an agreement between two spouses. So it may be in the context of people at various stages of their relationship. It could relate to spouses who are about to live together or who already live together. It could be for those who are married or about to get married, or it can even be for people who are separating. Now, what's the difference between an interspousal agreement and a separation agreement? So a separation agreement is a form of interspousal agreement that only relates to separating spouses.
So if spouses plan to stay together, Stephanie, why would you go ahead and have this done anyways?
Well, at the beginning of a relationship, often people have really good intentions. They have the relationship at heart and a relationship in their mind, and often they'll make promises to one another. And sometimes those promises, or very often those promises, just stay verbal. And in particular, if someone comes into a relationship or both people come into a relationship with significant assets or things that they want to protect in the event of a separation, then it's really important that those promises get formalized into the written interspousal agreement.
So what kind of topics would go into that, Stephanie, even if the couples are not planning on separating? What are some of the things that should be considered in that agreement?
Well, there's no set topics necessarily that go into an interspousal agreement, but I'll give you some of the typical ones. So for the first topic, typically we talk about division of assets and debts. So at the end of a relationship, what's going to happen to certain assets or certain qualities or certain types of assets? As well, there's legislation in each province that describes if in the absence of an interspousal agreement, the legislation describes how assets and debts would be divided at law between spouses. So if spouses want something different than the natural application of the law, it's really important to put that into an interspousal agreement. Second, spousal support. So couples might want to specify whether spousal support would be payable or not payable at the end of a relationship. Of course, these are the types of agreements that are really difficult. At the end, they often will get challenged as far as what people agree to at the beginning. So it's really important to get legal advice about setting out something with respect to spousal support. Third topic, the children. So issues around children, of course, can be very difficult to put into an interspousal agreement. Often what will be included in that is children which were born of another relationship may be specified within an interspousal agreement. But even at that, it's risky to put it into an agreement while you're still cohabitating because the law will apply certain rights and entitlements with respect to parents and step-parents that are very difficult to enforce if you try to specify something different in an interspousal agreement. And the last one is what happens on death. So often in an interspousal agreement, you'll write out what your intention is with respect to providing for your spouse on death. The reason it's important to put it into an agreement is because an agreement is something that's signed by both parties. Whereas in a will, in a last will and testament, that's only signed by one party. And so there is a chance that one spouse or the other might have a different provision in their will. And so with the interspousal agreement, it's something that's signed by both of you.
Now, is this something that you can just do on your own, these types of agreements, or do you have to have a lawyer once it's done, look over it, sign it, that type of thing?
This is a really tricky question to answer. I'm going to be very, very cautious in my approach. It's highly, highly recommended that you have a lawyer to draft your interspousal agreement and to sign off on it. Now, that's not to say that you can't have the negotiations completed between the couple. You can even seek the assistance of a mediator to help to negotiate the terms of that agreement. But because there's specific legislation that will cause an interspousal agreement to be enforceable or not enforceable at law, it's really important that if you want certain promises between two spouses to be upheld in the event of a separation or in the event of death, it's really important that you make sure that it's enforceable, because these are the kind of agreements that often get challenged at the end of a relationship. And that's the last thing you want, is to find out at the end of your relationship that in fact all that entire duration of your relationship, you thought you were going on the same promises, and yet at the end of it, you find out that it's unenforceable.
All right, Stephanie, well, thank you so much on the information on this. And if anybody is looking where to get started for something like this, even if somebody's been a couple for, say, 6 months or 6 years, it's not too late, I'm guessing, to get something like this together. What is the best way to get that information?
Sure, they can reach out to our office at 780-875-2234, or of course, go on to our website at henkadivorce.ca.
All right, Stephanie, well, thank you so much again for joining us this week, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Stacy.